Hello, this is my psychology presentation, oral report. It seems as though my computer didn't want to work, so I'm just going to do this from my phone. The topic of discussion: does exposure to media violence increase an individual's likelihood of engaging in violent behavior? This has been a highly debated topic and will be discussed throughout this presentation. The source material: Bushman and Huseman's short-term and long-term effects of violent media on aggression in children and adults. The Archives of Pediatrics and Adolescent Medicine. It's a meta-analytical piece and focuses on numerous articles. So the aim and rationale behind it was to test whether the results of accumulated studies on media violence and aggression behavior are consistent with the theories that have evolved to explain the effects. So essentially it's saying, does the new theories support what has been presented from the previous results, and vice versa? So it focuses on both the short-term and long-term effects of media violence. The hypothesis. So these are the predicted outcomes. The short-term effects should be greater for adults, and the long-term effects should be greater for children. So the participants, considering there are numerous studies involved, there were children under the age of 18 and adults. The method: the focal point on aggressive behavior, thoughts and feelings. So essentially they're trying to find empirical basis for these specific feelings and intangible objects. So therefore there are severity rating systems for aggression, and they use different markers to indicate how someone is feeling and how they can present themselves. There are also physiological states which they can measure, such as heart rate responses and respiratory rate, which are associated with a state of aggression. There's also comparative measures to non-violent material. So this is when they will present a certain study that involves one person viewing a non-violent material and the other viewing a violent material, and seeing how they react differently to different stimuli. So the results: the hypothesis was supported, and it is evident that media has some effect on the aggression of individuals who are consuming it. So violent media, regardless of how minute or how large, will have some effect on an individual. So what was found? It's found that the short-term or immediate effects are due to priming of existing encoded information. And so essentially this happens mainly to adults. Long-term effects or learning is easier for children, as they are encoding new information with less interference, as they have previously less experiences. So effects on children. Children will still have immediate short-term reactions. It just means that long-term reactions are more prevalent and the effects are longer lasting. They will follow behavioral scripts, such as mimicking what they've seen on screen, and this will depend on reinforcements if the actions are displayed once again. So for example, if a child sees someone hitting, punching or kicking someone on screen, and they are rewarded or not punished for their behavior, the child will be more likely to continue this behavior. So new information that is stored and encoded. So this is because the information that they have gained is now being put in the long-term memory and can be accessed for future events. So adults, they seem to be more informed and experienced in most instances. Their priming is based off the previous encoded networks of information. So basically, what they've already learned will in fact come to the surface when they see something of an aggressive response, and it will come in large and rapid forms. So all their past events and experiences that they associate with aggression will come to the surface and will be altered a slight amount by what they are viewing. So conclusion: consistent to all these theories in all instances, and there are no contradictions. So Bushman, looking back on all the different research that has been provided in the article, suggests that there is actually no contradictions to, firstly, short-term effects being more prevalent in adults and long-term effects being more prevalent in children. Then Bushman goes on to warn parents how to protect their children, basically considering all media violence as a detrimental effect on a child's development. So essentially, the final notes. There's a personal anecdote that I'd like to share. When you're watching a violent show, so for example, I was watching a fighting movie called Never Back Down. It's enticing to think that you could live that lifestyle and that you'd go out on the street and start fights with people. But reality takes over once you stop the medium. And that's the thing. People need to be worried about continuous medium. So it's not like you're going to go fight someone on the street just because you saw a movie. I mean, there are some people who will do this, but the vast majority of us will not partake in these activities. There is another side to the argument. Obviously, there are numerous facets that cause violent behavior, and this is seen in a recent Singaporean study that indicated that even the food that you eat can influence how violent and aggressive you are. So therefore, I believe it's more of a concoction of different facets and aspects that cause someone to become more violent and aggressive. Whereas Bushman is polarizing in his opinion and considers it just to be the sole responsibility of media violence that causes aggressive behavior in young children. Why is this paper so relevant? Well, firstly, it discusses both the long-term and short-term effects of media violence. It's also relevant to both adults and children, so that means regardless of age, it displayed how media has an effect on people and what sort of effects it will have on people. Essentially, the focal point being that media, effect, and outcomes. So media's effect is widespread. Obviously, the people that have been displayed in these tests have seen their results, and understanding that this is how media affects individuals in different circumstances, in different ways. It's easy to say that media will affect everyone in the same way, but this is not possible. Even if they are similar, it's never going to be exactly the same. And this is why Bushman's research was so important in understanding what different effects will impact on a person. So thank you, this has been my presentation. Sorry for the shoddy camera. And yep,